Arizona? The kind of afternoon where the sky is so blue it aches behind your eyes, and heat shimmers above cracked sidewalks like a fever. Jenna Myers, who'd come to this suburb for work but never planned to stay, walks along the back alleys, looking for a shortcut, a rare moment of quiet between patient visits. Her backpack is heavy with supplies. Her phone, as usual, is buzzing with messages she has no desire to answer. She's walked these alleys before, but today the world feels off-kilter. Maybe it's the stifling stillness, the way even the cicadas seem to hold their breath. Maybe it's that she can't stop replaying a tense conversation with her mother from last night, words sharp as dry grass. Or maybe she'll think later it was fate. Nah, she passes behind a warped wooden fence, its paint long since surrendered to the Arizona sun. There's a moment, blink and you miss it, where a shadow slides along the bottom slat. Jenna stops, squints, thinking it might be a cat or just a trick of the war to the light. But then she so he says it. A paw, not scrabbling, not frantic, just there. Reaching, steady, almost formal. Jenna's heart knocks against her ribs. She crouches down, ignoring the bite of gravel beneath her knees. The paw is large, dust-covered, the nails blunt and cracked. Slowly it pulls back, and a muzzle appears. Broad, tawny, streaked with the dust of too many lonely days. She meets his gaze. A German shepherd, not young, not ancient, eyes dulled but uncannily present. He doesn't flinch, doesn't growl, just looks at her, head resting sideways on the dirt, as if waiting for her to speak first. Jenna glances around. No one in the alley, no voices drifting from the other side of the fence. The only sound is the hum of distant air conditioning units. She whispers, "Hey, buddy." No response, except a faint, nearly invisible flick of an ear. Jenna inches closer, pressing her hand flat to the ground, fingers splayed. The dog's eyes flick down, then back up. He shifts, as if to say, "See, I'm here, I see you." The next few minutes stretch, strange and quiet, marked only by the syncopation of two creatures sizing each other up. Jenna's mind, usually racing with patient files and grocery lists, clears to a single, yet unyielding question. Why is he here, alone, with no bark, no bite, just a silent plea? As she watches, he lifts his head a fraction, and with surprising care, presses his paw under the fence again. It's not a cry for help, Jenna realizes, but a test. A gesture so understated it breaks something open in her. This isn't desperation. It's a quiet, steady plea. Will you see me? Jenna straightens, dusts her knees, and studies the house on the other side. Stucco faded, weeds shoulder high, a plastic toy truck half buried in gravel. She thinks of all the times she's walked past suffering in hospitals and city streets, telling herself someone else would help. The thought sours on her tongue. Her phone buzzes again. She silences it, takes a shaky breath. She kneels once more, this time closer, voice softer. "I see you," she says, the words heavier than she expects. As the sun inches westward, Jenna sits with the dog, neither of them moving, the rest of the world evaporating in the shimmering heat. She tells herself she'll just stay a minute more, then call animal services, then go about her day. But something in the dog's patient, unblinking gaze anchors her there. For the first time in weeks, Jenna isn't thinking about work, or her mother, or anything at all, except the silent conversation between her and this dog, whose name she doesn't know, whose story she can't yet guess. All she knows is she can't walk away. Not this time. A sudden noise, a car backfiring down the block, makes the dog flinch, but he doesn't break eye contact. Jenna, on impulse, reaches out and lets her fingers graze the rough wood near his paw. He doesn't pull away. Instead, he lets out a slow, shuddering sigh. Something passes between them in that moment. Jenna recognizes it. A thread of trust, so fragile she barely dares breathe. She glances at the sky, watches a hawk circle overhead. And for a wild moment she thinks, maybe this is the reason I ended up in this town, on the street, in this hour. Jenna finally stands, legs stiff, but she doesn't leave. She peers over the fence, looking for a bell, a name, a sign of life from the house. Nothing. Her mind spins with possibilities. Is he abandoned? Hurt? Why doesn't he bark? She whispers again, more to herself than the dog. I can't leave you here. He blinks slowly, the sun catching in the amber of his eyes. In that golden slant of late afternoon, Jenna makes a choice that will reshape both their lives. She kneels one last time and says, I'll come back. I promise. She traces her way down the alley, but not before looking back. The dog's paw still reaches under the fence, waiting, unwavering. As she rounds the corner, Jenna feels the weight of the day shift. The world outside resumes its clamor, but inside, something's changed. She knows she won't sleep that night until she knows what will become of the dog with the steady, reaching paw. The Arizona afternoon fades into evening, but the image of the German Shepherd's steady paw, pressed beneath that battered fence, follows Jenna home. She can't shake it. It colors every moment. As she reheats soup she's too distracted to eat, as she washes her hands at the kitchen sink, as she sits on her worn-out couch with the TV flickering in the background. Even as she calls her mother, who doesn't pick up, Jenna's thoughts drift back to the alley, to the dog who made no sound and asked for nothing except to be seen. She paces her small apartment, the familiar restlessness kicking in. Jenna has always been someone who struggles with inaction. She's good in emergencies, thrives on adrenaline and purpose, but this is something else, a slow, gnawing sense that if she lets this go, she'll regret it forever. She tries to reassure herself. Animal services will come. Someone else will notice. But as dusk slides into night and the world grows quiet, Jenna's certainty wavers. Her phone, finally, provides a number for animal control, and she dials, her voice tight, and leaves a message. There's a German Shepherd chained up behind 2116 East Maple. He looks malnourished. Please send someone. She hangs up and stares at the wall, unsatisfied, as if the act of reporting a wrong can erase the ache of witnessing it. Sleep doesn't come easy. When she finally drifts off, her dreams are crowded with images, fences, reaching paws, wide eyes, watching from the shadows. The next morning, Jenna wakes before her alarm. The Arizona sun is merciless even at dawn. After a shower, in a mug of coffee she barely tastes, she finds herself drawn, almost against her will, back to the alley. Her stethoscope bounces against her chest. She's supposed to visit a patient on the next block, but her feet ignore that obligation. The alley is unchanged, the same warped fence, the same lazy silence, broken only by the distant whine of a leaf blower. Jenna's heart races as she nears the spot. For a terrible moment, she thinks the dog might be gone. That she imagined it all. Then she sees him, the German Shepherd, head resting on the dirt, gaze alert but hollow. He hasn't moved. There's no water bowl, no sign of food. A pile of empty cans, half buried in weeds, lies just within view. Jenna's hands curl into fists. She tries the animal services line again. Voicemail. She leaves a second message, voice sharper this time, anger bleeding through. Still, nothing. Frustrated, Jenna circles around the block, searching for the front entrance to the house. The yard is a jungle of wild grass and sun-bleached toys. The mailbox is overstuffed, paint peeling, no cars, no movement. She knocks, once, twice, 3 times, her knuckles stinging from the effort. No answer. She shouts, "Hello? Anybody home?" Silence. Something feels wrong. Not just neglect, but absence. Jenna stands in the driveway, sweating, listening for any hint of life inside the house. Nothing. Not even a dog's bark. Determined, she walks the perimeter, scanning for a way in. Behind a broken garden gnome and a pile of cracked ceramic pots, she spots a cinder block, half sunk into the dirt. With a furtive glance down the street, half expecting to be yelled at, she drags the block closer to the fence. Heart pounding, Jenna climbs onto it and peers over. What she sees punches the breath from her lungs. The German Shepherd is chained to a splintered post, the heavy metal collar pressing into fur, rubbed raw. The chain itself is thick, old and short. So short that the dog can barely move more than a few feet in any direction. He lies curled in the only patch of shade, sides rising and falling with slow, shallow breaths. Two cracked plastic bowls sit nearby, one overturned, the other bone dry. There's no food, just a few scraps of sun-hardened kibble scattered in the dust. Jenna swallows against a wave of nausea. She glances at the windows, curtains drawn, silence heavy. She wonders how long he's been like this, waiting in the heat, invisible to everyone but her. Her nurse's instincts kick in. She scans for wounds, sees a bald patch on the dog's side, a dried trickle of blood at his ear, scabs on his paws. The dog notices her but doesn't rise. He doesn't even wag his tail. Only his eyes follow her, unwavering. "I can't leave you like this," Jenna whispers, voice trembling. She searches for something, anything that might help. Her gaze lands on a pile of rusted tools leaning against a decrepit grill, garden shears, an old rake, and, improbably, a heavy bolt cutter. Jenna's breath catches. The cutter is within arm's reach, but on the other side of the fence. The world narrows to a single point. Her, the fence, the suffering animal, the tool that could mean freedom. Jenna hesitates, her mind racing with questions. Is it legal to intervene? What if someone comes home? But as she studies the dog's thin, trembling frame, those worries pale in comparison to what she feels. Fury, sorrow, a fierce tenderness she hasn't allowed herself in years. She glances back toward the street. No movement? No witnesses? She grips the fence and steadies herself. "Hang on, buddy," she whispers, voice steadier than she feels. As if in answer, the dog shifts slightly, pulling the chain taut. The metallic clink is jarring in the silence. Jenna's heart pounds. She debates calling the police, but the thought of waiting hours, of the dog baking in the heat, feels unbearable. Besides, something deep inside her knows this isn't the kind of hurt that can be fixed by paperwork or protocol. She checks her phone. Battery half dead. No new messages. She tucks it into her pocket, squares her shoulders, and makes her decision. Moving quickly, Jenna positions the cinder block beneath the lowest slat in the fence and heaves herself over. Her shoes catch on the wood, sending splinters into her palms. She lands with a muffled thud in the tangled grass of the yard. The dog lifts his head, startled but silent. She whispers, "It's okay. No, I'm here." He doesn't move, doesn't bare his teeth, only watches her with those deep, unblinking eyes. The bolt cutter is heavier than she expected. Rust flakes onto her hands as she hefts it, the weight oddly reassuring. Jenna kneels beside the chain, studying the padlock. The metal is thick, but the bolt cutter's jaws are sharp and strong. She positions the cutter, glancing once more at the windows. Still no movement. Her hands tremble as she lines up the jaws with the chain. For a moment, she hesitates, frozen by the enormity of what she's about to do. The dog, as if sensing her doubt, noses her wrist gently. Jenna exhales. She presses down. The cutter bites into the metal. A screech echoes across the yard, the sound of steel surrendering after years of tension. The chain snaps, jerking the dog backward. For a heartbeat, he flinches, expecting pain. Then, realizing the pressure has vanished, his whole body sags, not from fear, but relief. Jenna drops the bolt cutter, her breath ragged, sweat stinging her eyes. The dog doesn't bolt. He doesn't bark. He simply lowers himself to the ground, sides shuddering, the sun painting gold across his battered fur. In that suspended moment, Jenna kneeling in the dirt, the chain lying broken, the dog watching her with something like hope. Everything else falls away. It's just the two of them, bound by an act that cannot be undone. As sirens wail faintly in the distance and the sky slides toward dusk, Jenna knows one thing for certain. She can't walk away now. The chain may be broken, but nothing about this is over. There's a stillness that follows the breaking of the chain, almost holy, as if the world is holding its breath, watching Jenna and the battered German shepherd to see what comes next. Jenna remains crouched, bolt cutters still clutched in her hand, her breath ragged and heart pounding so loud she's sure it can be heard through the whole empty house. The heat is relentless, pressing down on her shoulders, making the moment shimmer with unreality. The dog, the one whose name she doesn't know, backs up instinctively, the chain dragging through the dust behind him. There's fear in his movement, but also confusion. A wild glint in his eyes that Jenna recognizes from hospital rooms, the look of someone whose pain is finally interrupted, replaced by a void they don't know how to fill. She lets the bolt cutters fall to the ground with a dull clatter and holds her hands out, palms up, the universal sign of surrender. "Easy, buddy," she murmurs, her voice steady despite her racing pulse. "It's over. You're free." The dog stands, unsure, his ribs showing beneath the faded fur. He tests the new slack, moving away from the fence, sniffing at the dirt, then circles back toward to her. His tail is tucked, but his ears are alert. He doesn't growl or bark, just watches Jenna with a gaze that is sharp and bewildered, both hopeful and haunted. Jenna doesn't move. She has learned over years with patience that some wounds take time, that trust can't be forced. The urge to reach out, to touch, to comfort is strong, but she resists. She waits. It is the dog who moves first. After a long, trembling pause, he takes one shaky step, then another, until he stands just out of arm's reach. He sniffs at the ground where the chain once lay, nose quivering. Jenna sees the sores beneath his fur, the patches where skin is raw and inflamed, and a lump rises in her throat. She speaks softly. "You did good. You're okay. I promise." The world narrows to that patch of yard, the battered dog, the broken chain, Jenna kneeling in the dust. Over the fence, the rest of the neighborhood moves on. Sprinklers tick, a distant lawnmower drones. Somewhere, a kid shouts for his brother. But here, time slows. The air thick with tension and possibility. Jenna glances at the house. Still no movement. The windows remain blank, indifferent. A part of her wonders if anyone has even lived here for weeks or months. The neglect feels absolute. Not just a mistake, but a deliberate forgetting. She wonders what kind of pain, what kind of life, could lead someone to leave a dog chained in the sun, invisible to the world. Suddenly, footsteps crunch on gravel. Jenna's breath catches. She tenses, ready to defend her actions if someone appears. But it's only a pair of teenagers cutting through a side alley, oblivious to the drama unfolding in the yard. Jenna relaxes, then laughs softly at her own paranoia. The dog looks at her, head tilted, alert, as if trying to understand the strange human world that has hurt and now saved him. Jenna's phone buzzes in her pocket. She startles, checks the screen. Still no response from Animal Services, but now a new notification, a voicemail from her boss, reminding her of a shift change. The world outside is pulling at her, demanding she return to normal. But she's rooted here, unable to leave. She glances at the dog, who's still trembling, his legs shaky beneath him. He tries to sit, then collapses awkwardly. The effort too much. Jenna's heart clenches. She crawls forward, moving slowly, her hands low. The dog's eyes widen, but he doesn't move away. She can smell the sour tang of infection, the dust caked in his fur. Jenna looks around the yard, searches for water, for anything she can offer. The overturned bowl is useless. Her backpack, left near the alley, is out of reach. She curses under her breath, feeling helpless. But she's here, and she won't leave him alone. She settles onto the ground, keeping her distance, and begins to talk. About nothing and everything, her job, her mother, her fears, the way Arizona light feels too bright some days. She talks not because she expects the dog to understand, but because the silence is too heavy, too full of memory and regret. Minutes pass. The sun climbs higher, sweat beads on her forehead and trickles down her neck. The dog's eyes drift half-closed, his breathing slow and ragged. He looks exhausted, as if relief is a weight all its own. A noise at the street, a car pulling up, snaps both of them to attention. Jenna's heart hammers. She stands, wipes her hands on her jeans, and peers over the fence. A battered animal control van rolls to a stop, dust swirling in its wake. Relief and anxiety battle in her chest. Is she in trouble? Has someone called the cops? The door opens. Two officers, both sunburned and tired, step out. One is tall, with a gray mustache. The other is younger, phone glued to her ear. They spot Jenna in the yard, and the older man raises a hand. "You the one who called?" Jenna nods, suddenly self-conscious. "Yeah, I didn't know what else to do." The officers move with the tired efficiency of people who have seen too much. They scale the fence, assessing the scene, the broken chain, the limp dog, Jenna's anxious expression. The younger officer kneels beside the shepherd, her touch gentle, practiced. "He's bad off," she murmurs, her voice more to herself than anyone else. "How long's he been here?" Jenna shakes her head. "I don't know. I couldn't leave him." The officers exchange glances, not judgmental, just resigned. They've seen this before, too many times. The older officer pulls out a clipboard, begins to fill out a form. The younger wraps a soft leash around the dog's neck, whispering soothing nonsense. The dog doesn't resist. He doesn't struggle. He stares at Jenna, and there's something in his eyes. A question, a plea, maybe even a flicker of trust. They lift him gently, careful not to aggravate his wounds. The shepherd sags in their arms, eyes fixed on Jenna the entire time. He doesn't whimper or fight. It's as if he's surrendered all resistance, let go of the last vestiges of fear. For Jenna, the moment is unbearable and beautiful at once. She wants to follow, to make sure he's safe, to see this through. "Are you coming?" the younger officer asks, glancing back at her. Jenna nods, grabs her backpack, and trails after them, heart in her throat. As they load the dog into the van, Jenna takes one last look at the broken chain. The empty yard, the sun blazing overhead. Something inside her shifts. A promise silently made. She will not let this story end in a file or forgotten kennel. She's in this now, as surely as if she herself had been chained in that yard, waiting for rescue. As the van pulls away, Jenna sits in her car, tears stinging her eyes, not just for the dog, but for herself, for every time she looked away, for every quiet plea she ignored. She vows, quietly, fiercely, that this time she will not walk away. The world outside is moving, uncaring, but inside Jenna, a new resolve takes root. The chain has been snapped, but the hardest work of trust, of healing, of redemption is only just beginning. The animal control van rattles down the sun-baked street, dust curling up in its wake. Inside, Jenna sits wedged on the edge of a cracked plastic seat, hands clenched in her lap. The officers, Officer Parks with his worn Dodgers cap, and Officer Lacey Younger, hair tied back in a tight bun, move with the brisk quiet of people used to urgent, sad errands. The German Shepherd lies on a folded blanket between them, silent, unmoving, eyes half shut but always tracing Jenna's face whenever she looks his way. The air inside the van is thick with the smell of disinfectant, sweat, and something else. Old fear, maybe, or the memory of 100 lost animals ferried down these same roads. Jenna forces herself to breathe. She knows the drive across town to the animal hospital won't take long, but every bump and turn feels endless. Lacey checks the dog's breathing. "You did good," she murmurs, not looking at Jenna, but at the shepherd, whose fur is still damp around the neck where the chain had been. He's a tough one," Park says quietly, steering the van past rows of faded homes and scruffy desert lots. "Most dogs, they put up a fight. He just gave up." Jenna's voice comes out small. "He didn't want to hurt anyone. He just wanted out." Nobody replies, but Lacey's eyes meet hers in the rear view. Soft with something like understanding, they pull up behind the Chandler Animal Hospital, a low beige building with sun-worn lettering and a patchy palm tree out front. The officers work efficiently, gathering forms, prepping a rolling stretcher. Lacey gently loops an arm under the shepherd's chest. Park's supporting his hind legs. He's heavy, Jenna notices, but not in a healthy way. His body sags, muscle wasted away, skin loose over bone. Inside, the hospital is cool and humming with low voices. A wall-mounted TV flickers with muted news, and a receptionist greets them, unstartled by the sight of another battered animal. Lacey rattles off the details. Found chained, no owner on site, unknown medical history, while Parks fills in the intake forms. A vet tech arrives, clipboard in hand, and Jenna follows them down the hall. She can't make herself leave. The dog's eyes track her, a faint spark of recognition in their gold-brown depths. "You a relative?" the vet tech asks absently, pushing through the door to an exam room. Jenna hesitates. "No, I found him. I couldn't walk away." The tech nods, unsurprised. "It happens more than you think." The exam room is bright, smelling of antiseptic and wet fur. The vet, Dr. Molina, arrives, moving with careful efficiency. She checks the shepherd's gums, shines a light into his eyes, fingers each of his legs. Jenna hovers at the edge of the room, half invisible, afraid to hope. "He's malnourished," Dr. Molina says. "Dehydrated, old wounds, some infected, significant muscle atrophy." And she lifts the shepherd's lip to reveal cracked, worn teeth. "He's been eating whatever he could scavenge." Jenna feels anger spark in her chest, a sudden hot flame. "Can he recover?" The vet sighs. "He's got a chance. No broken bones, but it'll be a process. Food, fluids, antibiotics. He's going to need patience." As the team works, drawing blood, cleaning wounds, attaching IV lines, Jenna drifts closer to the table. She talks softly, recounting little details from her day, anything to fill the sterile silence. The shepherd's gaze never leaves her. When he trembles at the touch of a needle, she murmurs reassurance, her voice a thin thread tying them both to the present. Time blurs. Jenna signs paperwork, her name scrawled beside lines marked witness and rescuer. Lacey and Parks are gone, replaced by other techs and the distant bark of kenneled dogs. Dr. Molina returns with updates. "No microchip, no tags, no record. He'll stay here for now, under observation. You can visit if you want." Jenna nods, grateful. "I'll be back tomorrow." She steps out into the waiting room, lightheaded and raw. A family with a golden retriever sits across from her, the little girl plucking fur from her jeans. The world outside feels loud, indifferent. Jenna stares at her hands, noticing the deep scratches and a dark smear of the dog's blood on her wrist. Her phone buzzes. A text from her boss, another from her mother. She ignores them both. For the first time in months, maybe years, Jenna's focus is razor sharp. She has done something she can't undo. She knows she will see this through. That night, at home, the emptiness of her apartment feels sharper, a missing weight. She sits at the kitchen table, staring at a mug of tea gone cold, replaying every detail. The sun in the yard, the chain biting into fur, the broken, silent gaze. She searches the local lost pet forums, posts a message with a vague description, just in case someone is looking for him. But deep down, Jenna feels the truth. This dog has been nobody's for a long time. Sleep is fitful. She dreams of fences and chain links, of wandering endless desert, of finding the shepherd again and again, always reaching for her through splintered wood. The next morning, Jenna is at the hospital before her first cup of coffee. She brings a thermos of chicken broth. She remembers vaguely that it's good for sick dogs, and a faded blanket from her trunk. The receptionist recognizes her and waves her through. In the recovery ward, the shepherd lies curled in a metal kennel, ivy still taped to his foreleg. His head lifts, barely, when he sees her. "Hey, buddy," Jenna whispers, sinking to her knees beside the kennel. She pours some broth into a plastic bowl and sets it inside. The dog's nose twitches. After a long, uncertain pause, he laps at the broth, slow and cautious. Jenna smiles, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. She stays as long as the staff allow, reading aloud from her phone, news headlines, fragments of poetry, random thoughts. The shepherd doesn't move, but his gaze softens, eyelids fluttering in drowsy contentment. When the tech comes to check his bandages, he doesn't fight. He just stares at Jenna, as if her presence alone makes the world a little less dangerous. Before leaving, Jenna presses her hand to the kennel bars. I'll be back, promise. The dog watches her go, his eyes tracking her until she disappears down the hall. In the parking lot, the Arizona sun feels different, less oppressive, almost gentle. Jenna stands for a long time, watching the entrance, before turning toward her car. There is so much work left to do, for both of them. Healing, she knows, isn't simple. But for the first time in a long while, she feels hope, a quiet certainty that neither of them will face it alone. The days pass in a soft, unhurried rhythm, marked not by clocks or calendar squares, but by Jenna's visits to the animal hospital. Each morning, she wakes before sunrise, the nervous flutter in her stomach almost comforting now. Purposeful, not anxious. She picks up little things for the shepherd, cans of unsalted chicken broth, a battered paperback of Emily Dickinson's poetry, a faded blue blanket that once belonged to her own childhood dog. The nurses at Chandler Animal Hospital start greeting her by name. Someone hangs a visitor badge for her by the front desk. Every day, Jenna finds the shepherd curled in his kennel, head on his Sevres paws, as if the weight of the past has pressed him into the cold metal. His fur, under the fluorescent lights, is a patchwork of tawny gold and scars, and the IV in his foreleg is a stark reminder of how close he came to giving up. The dog barely lifts his head when she enters at first. Still, she sits beside him, legs crossed on the tile, reading aloud, news blurbs, weather reports, little scraps of poetry. The sound of her voice becomes a kind of ritual, soft, steady, the way her father once read to her after nightmares. At first he shows no reaction, only blinks and stares, ears flat, as if bracing for some blow that never comes. Jenna learns to wait. She's always been impatient, but there's a slowness in this process that feels almost holy, like watching a seed split, waiting for the first shoot to breach the soil. She remembers what Dr. Molina said after the first full night. Dogs like this, they don't know how to hope. They wait for disappointment. The words echo in her mind each time she sees the shepherd's blank gaze. On the third day, Jenna brings a thin, striped scarf and ties it around her neck as she reads. She's halfway through a poem when the dog's nose twitches, his head turning, ears pricking up at the unfamiliar color. She lets the scarf slip through the bars, and to her surprise, he sniffs it gently. Not exactly trust, but a gesture, a sliver of curiosity, a question forming. Hey, you like that? Jenna grins. I can bring more tomorrow. The vet tech, a gentlewoman named Maribel, stops by to check the dog's IV. She glances at Jenna's offerings and smiles. He's getting spoiled, she says, and for the first time, Jenna lets herself hope it might be true. Despite daily visits, Jenna is reminded by the hospital staff, firm but kind, that the shepherd is a stray. There's protocol. Wait for someone to claim him, scan for microchips, search the lost dog listings. Maribel checks every day for a chip. There's nothing. Jenna calls the number posted in the local shelter Facebook group and emails a blurry photo to the city's lost pets registry. Days go by, and no one responds. No tags, no collar, no history, just the chain-shaped scars around his neck and the steady, wounded way he watches the world. It's the sixth day when something changes. Jenna walks into the ward, chicken broth in hand, and finds the shepherd curled on his blanket. He doesn't rise or bark, just watches her approach. Jenna settles in, tucks her knees to her chest, and opens her book to a dog-eared page. She begins to read aloud. Hope is the thing with feathers. The shepherd's ears flick, his nose twitching. Jenna pauses, grinning. Not feathers, huh? You're all about paws. For the first time, the dog shifts, adjusting his weight, nostrils flaring at the smell of broth. Jenna pours some into a dish and slides it through the bars. He drinks, slow at first, then with growing hunger, finishing every drop. Good boy, she says, voice almost a whisper, not daring to believe it. And then, as if in response to the phrase, the dog lifts his head, just barely, but enough to lock eyes with her. Something in his gaze flickers like a tiny light catching in the dark. Jenna laughs, her voice trembling. That's right. Good boy. You are a good boy. You know that. He shifts again, eyelids drooping, and sighs, a long, shuddering exhale that sounds suspiciously like relief. From then on, Jenna can't help but try out names. She tries Buddy, Max, Bear. None stick. Every time, he just blinks, unimpressed. It becomes a joke between them. You're picky, huh? She teases. Waiting for the perfect name? That afternoon, Jenna sits on the floor beside his kennel, thumbing through a list of classic dog names on her phone. She says each one aloud, slowly, carefully, watching for any sign of reaction. When she gets to Scout, there's a pause. The shepherd's ears flick, his tail, thin and ragged, twitches once. Scout, she repeats, surprised by how natural it feels. You like that, don't you? This time, when she says Scout, the dog lifts his head just a little, and for the first time, Jenna sees a spark of recognition, a faint but unmistakable sign. The tech passing by pauses, glancing down at the dog. Did you just name him? Jenna shrugs, grinning. He picked it. The tech pulls a marker from her pocket and scribbles on the whiteboard outside the kennel. Scout. Unclaimed? She adds up with a smile. He's officially part of the family now. From that day, everything shifts. Jenna addresses him as Scout, and each time he responds, a blink, a twitch of his tail, the ghost of a wag. The staff begin to use the name too. Scout needs his meds, Maribel will say, or Scout's ready for a walk. The other patients, the barking beagle, the nervous terrier, fade into the background. Scout has a name, and with it, a kind of belonging. Jenna visits every day, and with each visit, Scout grows stronger. He stands to greet her, even manages a cautious wag when she enters. She brings new toys, a tennis ball, a squeaky bone, but Scout is content just to listen to her voice, his chin resting on his paws. Jenna tells him stories about her patients, about her father's old dog, about the desert sunsets that make her think home. On the 7th day, the shelter staff ask her if she's considered adoption. Jenna hesitates, unsure. She's never owned a dog before, not as an adult. Her apartment is small, her life busy. But when she looks at Scout, she feels the gravity of the choice, the deep certainty that comes from being needed. As the sun slants through the hospital's front windows, Jenna sits beside Scout's kennel, her hand resting on the metal bars. She whispers, I don't know what's next, Scout, but I'm here. We'll figure it out together. Scout's tail thumps once, softly against the blanket. For the first time, Jenna believes it's not just hope, it's trust. Scout's recovery unfolds in slow, almost invisible increments. There are no grand gestures, no sudden leaps, just the quiet, patient accumulation of trust and strength. Every morning, Jenna comes to the animal hospital, always uncertain if today will be the day she'll see something change. Sometimes she brings small gifts, a new blanket, a chew toy, a slice of roast chicken wrapped in a napkin from the diner across the street. But what Scout seems to crave most is simply Jenna's presence, her gentle voice, her steady calm, the way she reads aloud as if nothing else exists in the world except the two of them, and the safe, clean smell of antiseptic. Scout's physical wounds begin to heal. His fur, patchy and rough at first, grows back in golden waves over his ribs and haunches. The sores fade, the limp vanishes. When the vet techs bring him food, he eats with careful gratitude, never snatching, never begging. Each day he grows a little stronger, able to stand a bit longer, to walk a bit farther in the small hospital courtyard. But there's something missing, something Jenna can't name. For all his progress, Scout remains eerily silent. He does not bark or whine. He flinches when doors close loudly, or when someone raises a hand too quickly, even if it's just to scratch their head. His eyes, though brighter now, still hold that old ache, the way wounded things do when they've learned to survive by expecting the worst. And Jenna talks to him constantly, filling the quiet with stories. She tells him about her patients. the elderly woman who keeps lemon drops in her purse, the little boy with asthma who's learning to play the trumpet, the twins who fight over a battered teddy bear. She tells him about her own loneliness, the way the desert sky makes her feel both small and hopeful, how her mother always texts her too late at night, sometimes when the room is empty and it feels safe. She tells Scout about her father's old dog, how he once saved Jenna from wandering into the street as a child. And she laughs softly at the memory, and for a second, the hospital doesn't feel like a place of endings, but of beginnings. The staff notice too. Maribel, the vet tech, smiles whenever she sees Jenna curled up beside Scout's kennel. "You're his favorite story," she teases. "You should see how he looks for you when you leave." Jenna shrugs, trying to play it off, but her heart soars. It's been a long time since she's been anyone's favorite. Anything. A week passes. 2. The routine becomes a lifeline for Jenna. Wake up, bring coffee and a treat for Scout, spend an hour or two reading or just sitting together, then head off to her nursing shift. On days when work is especially hard, when patients are difficult, or her boss is short with her, the thought of seeing Scout at the end of the day is what keeps her going. She tells herself she's helping him heal, but the truth is, she's healing too. Then, one afternoon, something shifts. Jenna's shift at the clinic runs late. She rushes to the animal hospital, anxiety gnawing at her. What if Scout thinks she's forgotten him? What if today's the day something goes wrong? She hurries down the hall, waving at the receptionist, and rounds the corner to Scout's kennel. He's lying on his blanket, eyes half closed, but as soon as he hears her voice, "Hey, Scout! Sorry I'm late." He sits up, alert. Jenna kneels, breathless, pressing her hand against the bars. Scout rises, his body awkward but determined. He steps forward, tail low, ears back, but then, as Jenna keeps talking, something incredible happens. Scout's tail gives a single, uncertain wag. Not wild or exuberant, but slow, as if he's testing a muscle he's almost forgotten he has. Jenna freezes, hardly daring to breathe. The moment hangs in the air, fragile, miraculous. She tries not to cry. "Did you just, wag your tail?" she whispers, her voice trembling. Scout sits, watching her. His tail wags again. Once, then twice. A little faster this time, still cautious, as if unsure he's allowed to show happiness, or whatever this new feeling is. Jenna laughs, the sound bubbling out of her, pure relief and gratitude. "That's it, Scout. That's my boy." She glances around, trying to catch Maribel's eye, but for now it's just the two of them, locked in this tiny celebration. Jenna talks faster now, her words tumbling over each other. She tells Scout how proud she is, how much it means to her to see him respond, to know that all the long, quiet hours have built to this small but powerful sign. Scout's eyes never leave hers. When Jenna slides her hand through the bars, he leans in, resting his chin on her fingers. His fur is warm and a little rough, but Jenna doesn't care. She strokes his muzzle gently, careful of the scabs that are still healing. As the minutes tick by, Scout's tail keeps wagging, shy but insistent. Like a heartbeat slowly gaining confidence, Jenna tells him again and again, "Good boy, Scout. Good boy." Until the words feel sacred, like a spell she never wants to break. The next day, Jenna tells the staff about the tail wag. They celebrate quietly. Maribel brings Scout a special biscuit. Dr. Molina stops by to give him a gentle scratch behind the ears. Even Officer Lacey, who happens to be dropping off another rescue, comes by to see. "He's got some spirit after all," she says with a grin. The change is subtle but unmistakable. Scout is still quiet, still watchful, but he's present in a way he wasn't before. When Jenna comes, his tail wags. A little faster, a little surer. When the vet techs check his wounds, he holds still, sometimes even nudging their hands for more attention. Jenna notices that other dogs in the ward respond to his calm presence. A nervous terrier stops barking when Scout is near. and the old beagle in the next kennel starts sleeping closer to the bars. For Jenna, the tail wag is everything. It's proof of hope, of trust, of the long, slow work of healing. It's the answer to all the silent questions she's carried since the day she found him in that lonely backyard. Every time she sees that wag, no matter how small, Jenna feels something in her own heart begin to mend. One night, as she's leaving, Maribel stops her at the door. You know he's ready, right? For a real home? Jenna hesitates, fear and longing warring in her chest. I want to. I'm scared I'll mess it up. Maribel smiles. You already saved him? The rest is just living? As Jenna steps out into the dusk, Scout's tail still wagging behind her, she realizes that maybe, just maybe, it's time to take the next step. For Scout, for herself, for the promise she made in the heat of that Arizona alley, the promise never to look away again. Scout's tail wag becomes the gentle drumbeat that moves the story forward. Days at the animal hospital are no longer heavy with dread. They're threaded with anticipation, each visit marked by a new, hopeful energy. Jenna isn't the only one who notices. The staff begin to talk openly, not just about Scout's survival, but about what comes next, about a future outside the walls of the shelter. It starts quietly. Maribel brings Jenna the hospital's interested adopter packet, sliding the stapled forms across the counter one bright morning. The gesture is casual, but Jenna feels her chest tighten all the same. She's never adopted a dog before. She remembers the responsibility of houseplants, the uncertainty of relationships that never lasted longer than a few seasons. But Scout looks up at her from his kennel. Ears forward, a small smile curling his lips. And Jenna realizes she wants this, even if it's that scares her. The official process begins. Jenna sits in a corner of the waiting room, pen poised above the lines, asking about her home, her routine, her experience with animals. She answers honestly. Occupation, traveling nurse, housing, small apartment, pet-friendly, previous pets, childhood dog, Samson. Yeah. Why do you want to adopt this animal? Jenna hesitates, then writes, because he saved me as much as I saved him. The next days are a blur of waiting. But legally, Scout has to be held a bit longer. It's the rule. Give time for a possible owner to appear for any lingering claim to be made. The staff check the lost pet reports, scan Facebook groups, even post a new photo of Scout to the city's online bulletin. No one calls. No one comes. The only people who visit Scout are Jenna and sometimes the staff who have come to love him in their quiet, as our professional way. Scout's chart grows fatter, no longer with medical warnings, but with the tiny milestones of progress. Ate full meal, walked outside with leash, sat for treat. Maribel snaps a Polaroid of Scout and tapes it to the corner of his chart. Underneath, in big blue letters, she writes, Scout, waiting for home. When Jenna visits, she brings a new collar, deep green, sturdy, the kind with an engraved nameplate. She waits until one quiet afternoon to show it to Scout. She kneels beside him, slips the collar over his head. There, she says softly, running her fingers along the plate. Scout, if found, call Jenna. Scout sits still and regal, as if he knows something important is happening. The tag catches the light, glinting gold. Jenna feels a lump in her throat, an overwhelming sense that this is a beginning, not an end. The day the paperwork is ready, Jenna arrives early, nerves buzzing. The lobby is busy, families bringing in new puppies, a man trying to coax a reluctant tabby from a carrier, texts moving briskly from room to room. The receptionist, a kind woman named Dara, waves Jenna over with a broad smile. He's all yours, you know, Dara teases, sliding a stack of forms across the counter. Scout chose you the day you walked in. Jenna laughs, but there are tears prickling her eyes. I think I needed him more than he needed me. Dara looks up, serious now. It happens that way sometimes. These dogs, they find us. Jenna sits, filling out the last of the adoption forms. She signs her name, full, deliberate letters. As she works, Scout is brought out on a leash. He pads quietly to her side and sits, pressing his body close to her leg, as if afraid she'll vanish if he looks away. Jenna slips her hand down to scratch behind his ear. Not going anywhere, buddy. This is it. A few more signatures, a check, and a review of Scout's medical needs. Antibiotics for another week, a special diet, follow-up shots. The vet goes over each instruction, but Jenna barely hears her. All she can see is Scout, now officially hers, looking up at her with the same steady trust he showed in the backyard all those weeks ago. As the staff snap a gotcha day photo, Jenna kneeling next to Scout, both a little awkward, both smiling, she realizes this is what commitment feels like. Scary and hopeful, equal parts joy and responsibility. There's a strange quiet as Jenna drives Scout home for the first time. She glances in the rearview mirror. Scout sits upright in the back seat, looking out the window, ears twitching at each new sound. Jenna talks to him as she drives, pointing out landmarks, telling him stories about her favorite coffee shop, the park where she runs, the tiny grocery store that always sells out of peaches by noon. They pull into the parking lot of Jenna's apartment complex, a modest building shaded by sagging mesquite trees. She leads Scout up the stairs, unlocking her door with trembling hands. Inside, her apartment is simple. A couch draped in faded quilts, stacks of medical textbooks on the table, plants in mismatched pots along the window ledge. Scout pauses at the threshold, sniffing the air. Jenna kneels beside him, hand steady on his collar. "This is home," she whispers, "for both of us." Scout walks in, careful and deliberate. He explores, nose to the floor, ears up, tail low, but not tucked. He circles the living room, pausing at the couch, the kitchen, the tiny bathroom. He flinches a little when Jenna closes the door behind them, but he doesn't panic. He comes back to her side, pressing his head into her thigh, anchoring himself to her. Jenna sits on the floor, Scout curled up next to her. She feels the tension in his body, uncertainty, hope, a readiness to bolt if things go wrong. She strokes his fur, whispering, "You're safe. We're safe." The collar glints in the fading light. For the first time, Jenna feels the fullness of what she's done, taken a life into her own, promised to be steady even when she feels unsteady herself. She pulls out her phone, sends a text to her mother. "Adopted a dog today. His name is Scout. Think you'd like him." There's no immediate reply, but Jenna doesn't mind. She has Scout, and Scout has her. And for this quiet moment, it's enough. As night settles over the Arizona desert, Jenna sits beside her dog, heart finally at peace. The paperwork is finished, the chain is gone. And for the first time in a long time, both of them are truly home. Scout's homecoming is nothing like the fairy tale Jenna imagined. There are no instant miracles, no viral video transformations. Instead, the first few days are a lesson in patience and humility, a reminder that healing is never a straight line. And safety for creatures who've been hurt is a process learned step by step. The first thing Jenna learns is how deeply the world can frighten a dog who has never really lived in one. Her apartment is small, but to Scout, it might as well be a labyrinth. When the front door closes with a soft click, he flinches so hard he bumps into the shoe rack, sending a pair of sneakers tumbling. Jenna kneels beside him, whispering comfort, and waits for the shaking to stop. "It's okay, Scout. Just me. Just home." Small noises become new obstacles. The pop and sizzle of her old coffee maker, the gentle clang of pipes when she runs the faucet, the sharp beep of her phone alarm in the morning. Each sound sends Scout to the nearest corner or under the table, tail tucked, breathing fast. Jenna quickly learns to move gently, to announce her presence in every room. She softens her voice, slows her footsteps, and keeps the lights low in the evenings. It's as if she's relearning her own life, shaping it, gently, to fit around the fragile trust of her new companion. The first meal at home is awkward and quiet. Jenna fills Scout's bowl with warm chicken and rice, crouching nearby, but not too close. He stands, sniffs, and looks back at her for reassurance before taking the first bite. He eats in small, careful mouthfuls, ears swiveling with each sound. Jenna smiles, relief flooding her as he finishes the bowl, then settles on the kitchen rug, eyes never leaving her. Nighttime is the hardest. Scout circles her small bedroom, refusing to lie down. When Jenna moves, he follows. When she stops, he stands beside her, uncertain. It isn't until the middle of the night, when she gets up for a glass of water and finds him curled in the hallway, that she realizes he doesn't know how to relax in safety yet. She sits on the floor beside him, humming softly, until at last he lays his head in her lap, exhausted. The days blur together. Morning walks before sunrise, when the world is quiet and Scout's nerves are less frayed. Careful introductions to the staircase, the mailbox, the patch of grass outside where neighborhood dogs leave their scents. Jenna discovers he won't walk through doorways unless she goes first. He freezes if he hears laughter from a neighbor's window or the slam of a distant car door. But every day, there is progress. Scout begins to explore the apartment. Tentative steps into the bathroom, a sniff around the couch, a cautious examination of the potted succulents lining the windowsill. Jenna keeps treats in every room, rewarding him for each small act of bravery. She invites a friend over for coffee one afternoon, her first visitor since Scout's arrival. Emily is gentle, patient, sitting on the floor and letting Scout come to her, but as soon as Emily laughs at a joke, Scout bolts, nails scrambling on the hardwood as he hides behind Jenna. It breaks her heart to see him so afraid of simple joy, and she wonders for the first time what his old life was really like. On the third night, a storm rolls over the desert. Thunder shakes the walls, rain hammers the windows. Jenna finds Scout cowering in the bathtub, eyes wild, body pressed so hard against the porcelain she worries he'll hurt himself. She sits on the floor, singing quietly, her hand resting near but not on him. It takes hours, but eventually the shaking stops. He inches closer, finally pressing his forehead to her knee, and falls asleep there as the storm dies away. Despite the setbacks, there are moments of hope that shine through the struggle. Scout begins to show interest in the outside world. He sniffs at the door when Jenna gets out the leash. The first time they walk past the playground, he watches the children run and laugh, his tail low but wagging once or twice. A neighbor's terrier barks through the fence, and Scout stands his ground, just watching, not running. Jenna praises him for every small triumph, her voice steady and warm. In the evenings, Jenna tries to create routines, soft music, gentle stories read aloud, the hum of her voice as she tells Scout about her day. She notices that he starts to settle near her feet as she sits on the couch. And on the fifth night, he dozes off there, twitching gently in sleep. Jenna sits motionless, afraid to break the spell. She realizes, watching his peaceful face, that healing is as much about waiting as it is about action. Still, there are days when the old scars show. One morning, as Jenna moves to pick up a fallen coffee mug, Scout flinches away from her raised hand. The motion is so instinctive, so full of remembered pain, that Jenna feels tears prick her eyes. She crouches beside him, whispering, "No one will ever hurt you again. I promise." He inches closer, laying his head on her knee, and for a moment the weight of the past lifts, replaced by something gentler, a quiet understanding between two beings learning how to trust. As the week ends, Scout has his first moment of pure, unguarded joy. Jenna finds him in the living room, nose buried in a blanket she left on the couch. He tosses it into the air, chasing the fabric as it falls, his tail wagging in fast, delighted circles. Jenna laughs, clapping her hands. "That's it, Scout? That's how you play?" He pauses, looking at her as if unsure if he's allowed, then bounds over, bumping his head into her chest. For the first time, Jenna feels the invisible line between past and present begin to blur. In that small, ordinary moment, she sees the dog he could become. A creature not just surviving, but alive. That night, for the first time, Scout chooses to sleep at the foot of her bed. He curls in a tight ball, his back pressed to her feet, breathing slow and even. Jenna falls asleep with her hand resting on his side. A quiet promise written in touch. "You're safe here. I'm not going anywhere. There are still hard days ahead." She knows that. But Jenna also knows this is how healing begins. With fear, with patience, with the courage to love something broken. Scout is home, and so, for the first time in a long while, is she. The Arizona summer deepens. Days slip into weeks, each one marked by small milestones. A wagging tail at the door, a nose nudging Jenna awake before sunrise, the soft weight of Scout's body pressed close at night. They build a new rhythm together, Jenna and Scout, both cautious in their happiness, never taking comfort for granted. Still, not everything comes easy. Scout's progress is a mosaic, pieces of confidence scattered between jagged edges of old fear. Some triggers still lurk, hiding in the ordinary. Jenna learns to anticipate most of them, but every so often, something catches them both off guard. A neighbor's shout, the clang of recycling bins, the bright, bursting laughter that echoes from the apartment next door. Jenna wants Scout to be a part of her world, not just her private shadow, but a companion who can move through life's noise and chaos. She decides to test the waters gently. One evening, she invites a few close friends over for dinner, hoping to show Scout that joy and togetherness don't have to be dangerous. She prepares carefully, texting her friends. Keep it low-key. Scout gets overwhelmed easily. Patience, please. Her friends arrive just after dusk, bringing with them the sense of takeout pizza and warm, easy laughter. Jenna keeps Scout on his leash at first, sitting beside him on the living room rug. Her friends greet him gently. Open palms, quiet voices. For a little while, it works. Scout circles the room, sniffing shoes, pausing to nuzzle Jenna's hand. There's a softness in his eyes, a curious hopefulness. But then the conversation grows animated. Stories tumble over each other, voices rise in happy competition. Someone clinks a glass too loudly, and another friend bursts out laughing at a joke. The sound, sharp, joyful, sudden, rips through Scout's composure. He freezes, hackles up, tail tucked hard. Jenna feels his body stiffen beneath her touch. Before she can react, Scout bolts. He darts for the front door, nails scrabbling on the hardwood. Jenna calls his name, but he slips through the cracked door, out into the humid night. For a moment, panic wells up in Jenna, raw and total. She fumbles with her shoes, apologizes breathlessly to her startled friends, and rushes out into the darkness. Outside, the world feels enormous and hostile. The porch light throws long, anxious shadows across the parking lot. Jenna's heart hammers as she searches the sidewalk, her voice trembling as she calls out, "Scout, buddy, come back." A minute passes, then another. She imagines all the things that could go wrong. The traffic, the wild desert animals, the distance Scout could cover if fear drove him far enough. The helplessness is like a fist in her chest. But then, through the half-light, Jenna spots a familiar shape curled on the edge of the porch. Scout sits there, tense but waiting, his eyes wide and unblinking. He's not running, not lost. Just outside, pressed against the wood, as if the threshold itself is a test he's not sure how to pass. When Jenna approaches, he flinches at first, then lets her kneel beside him, her breath shaking with relief. She sits next to him in the darkness, neither of them moving for a long time. Scout's head droops, his ears flat. He leans against her, the tremor in his body slow to fade. Jenna speaks softly, her words a balm. "It's okay. You did good. I'm right here. We'll go back in when you're ready." Inside, the apartment is quieter now. Her friends have lowered their voices, the laughter tempered by concern. Jenna waits with Scout, stroking his fur, her mind drifting to all the times she herself has needed to step outside, to find air when a room grew too full or a memory pressed too close. She realizes, sitting there, that this is Scout's way of coping, not running from her, but finding space to breathe. Eventually, when Scout's breathing slows, Jenna stands and offers her hand. He sniffs it, then nudges her palm, rising to his feet. Together, they walk back inside. Jenna thanks her friends, assures them that Scout is all right, but quietly ends the night early. After everyone leaves, the apartment feels strangely empty. Jenna makes tea, Scout curled at her feet. She looks at him, his body relaxed now, his eyes following her as she moves around the kitchen. There is no anger in him, no blame, just that quiet, steady trust that's been growing day by day. But the next morning, Jenna decides to try something new. She brings Scout out onto to the porch just after sunrise, when the air is cool and the world is still. They sit together on the old wooden steps, watching light spill over the roofs and the shadows retreat. Scout lays his head on Jenna's lap, his eyes half closed. There's no rush, no pressure to be anything but what he is, wounded, mending, present. Over the following days, the porch becomes their safe haven. When things are too loud or the apartment feels too small, Jenna and Scout step outside, breathing in the desert morning. Sometimes Jenna brings a book and reads aloud, her voice soft and measured. Sometimes they just sit, Scout pressed close, the world spinning by, unnoticed. One evening, a group of neighborhood kids pass by, laughing and tossing a basketball. Scout tenses at first, then glances up at Jenna. Reading her calm face, he relaxes, just a little. It's not perfect, not immediate, but it's enough. A sign that together, they're learning how to live in the world again. Jenna invites Emily over again, this time for a quiet cup of tea on the porch. Scout greets her with a cautious sniff, then settles at Jenna's feet. Emily smiles, careful not to laugh too loudly. He's different, she says, watching Scout watch the street. It's like he's choosing to stay. Jenna nods, understanding in her bones what it means to choose to stay, to lean into trust, even when everything inside you says run. She remembers nights in her own life when she sat outside letting the sky hold her because no one else could. She realizes suddenly that what she's given Scout isn't just a home, but a way to return to the world on his own terms. That night, as the sun bleeds red across the horizon, Jenna and Scout sit on the porch, wrapped in the hush of shared solitude. Scout presses his head into Jenna's lap, letting out a sigh so deep it feels like forgiveness, for himself, for the world, for all the years lost to fear. Jenna strokes his fur, whispering, "We did it. We're okay." There is no final triumph, no neat resolution, just a quiet moment on a porch in Arizona. Two souls resting, neither one alone. The Arizona dusk is gold and endless, casting long shadows across the apartment porch where Jenna and Scout sit together every evening now. The heat of the day fades into a gentler warmth, and cicadas sing in the mesquite trees. Scout's head rests in Jenna's lap, his eyes half closed, tail flicking in slow, lazy contentment. It's become their ritual, a space outside of time, where neither past nor future presses in too hard, where simply being together is enough. Jenna thinks sometimes about how far they've come. It feels like a lifetime ago that she first saw his paw sliding beneath the fence. Quiet, deliberate, so different from the desperate scrabbling she'd expected. She remembers that moment now with a kind of reverence, realizing it was not her who found Scout, but Scout who allowed himself to be found. It was a choice, made in silence, and honored in the small ways they've learned to trust each other since. Inside, Jenna's apartment has changed, shaped by the presence of another life. There are bowls in the kitchen corner, Scout's toys scattered on the rug, fur gathering in the corners. The air smells faintly of dog and lavender, the result of Jenna's attempts at keeping things tidy. At first, she'd tried to keep order, sweeping, arranging, keeping Scout's things tucked away. But now, she lets it be, accepting that comfort often looks like a mess. Sometimes she laughs to herself, wondering what her mother would say if she could see her now, barefoot in the kitchen, and then humming as she fills Scout's water bowl, her heart more at ease than it's been in years. Scout, too, is different. He moves with quiet confidence around the apartment, exploring new corners, claiming space. He eats with appetite, sleeps deeply, dreams that make his paws twitch. He still startles sometimes, at thunder, at sudden movement, at voices raised too high. But he recovers faster now. The old panic has been replaced with a patient curiosity, a willingness to meet the world halfway. He seeks Jenna's touch, and sometimes, when he's sure she isn't watching, he'll steal a sock or drag a blanket into a sunbeam settling himself in for a nap. Their life together is far from perfect. Jenna still works long shifts, sometimes coming home exhausted, smelling of antiseptic and worry. Some nights, Scout paces, unsettled by dreams he can't shake. There are bills to pay, lonely hours, moments when Jenna doubts herself, wonders if she's enough, if Scout wouldn't be better off with someone stronger, steadier. But every morning, Scout greets her with a wag and a nuzzle, as if to say, "You're here. That's what matters." One evening, Jenna sits on the porch, reading aloud as the sun sinks lower. Scout lies beside her, his breathing steady, the rhythm of it grounding her. She glances down at him and realizes how much he's grown. Not just in body, but in spirit. There is a glow to him now, a softness in his eyes that had been missing for so long. She closes her book and looks out at the quiet street, feeling a rare stillness inside. Scout lifts his head, sensing the shift in her mood. Jenna runs her fingers through his fur, her voice soft. "You know, Scout, we could have missed each other. If I hadn't walked down that alley, if you hadn't reached out. Sometimes I think about how close I came to walking away." Scout looks up, eyes patient and knowing. Jenna smiles, blinking back tears she didn't expect. "It wasn't the chain that broke you, was it?" she says, more to herself than to him. "It was being invisible, not being seen. But you let me see you. You let me choose you." Scout nudges her hand, sighs deeply, and settles back against her side. A car drives by, headlights cutting briefly through the idiol ame the dusk. The world keeps moving, but Jenna feels no urge to chase after it anymore. She's found her place, right here, on a porch, in the fading light, with a dog who reminds her every day that rescue is not a single moment, but 1,000 small choices to stay. As the stars begin to blink into the darkening sky, Jenna feels a familiar pull, the worry, the urge to fix, to solve, to plan ahead. But tonight, she lets it go. Tonight, she chooses to stay in this moment, to be present with the dog who saved her as much as she saved him. She leans back, feeling the rough wood of the porch beneath her, and looks down at Scout. "Thank you for choosing me," she whispers. Scout's tail thumps once, a gentle exclamation mark on the end of a long, silent sentence. And so, in the hush of that Arizona evening, Jenna understands. Love is not rescue, and rescue is not just breaking chains. It's seeing and being seen. It's reaching for each other, over and over, even on the days when it's hard or scary, or the world feels too big. If you've ever been someone's last hope, she thinks, if you've ever reached back when someone reached for you, then, you know, kindness isn't just a gesture, it's a rescue. If this story touched you, if you've ever saved or been saved by a soul who just needed to be seen, share it. Remember, every small kindness matters. Sometimes, all it takes is a choice.